Hello there. Thank you for taking some time to watch this training video with me about how to bring beta readers into the writing process. And I have three quick things that I want to cover in this time we have together. And the first one, I want to explain a little bit about the history of why we use beta readers in our process. I didn't always do it that way, but had a more than a few moments actually where I realized that having beta readers definitely would have helped. But I had this one instance that we worked it out and it was just really out of head with the author. We could not figure out how to move forward. Beta readers did it for us. And ever since that time, I was like, okay, I've got to do this every single time. And that author agreed with me. He said, I love you, Danielle. But if we had done this at the beginning, it would have been so much easier. And so now I do include beta readers in every process. So that's the first thing I want to go over and explaining to you why we do that. The second thing that I want to make sure we cover is, I want to set your expectations a little bit about what beta readers are and how beta readers are different from book reviewers. They do similar things. They read your book, give you feedback, but they come in at different times in the process. And so I wanted to make sure I'm clear on how that's different and what the beauty is of the beta readers. And another time we'll talk about the benefit of those reviewers, but the beauty of those beta readers and why we need them so early on, even when you're dealing with a rough draft. And the third thing I want to talk to you about is how to set your beta readers' expectations, and by helping you understand how we use their feedback to make your book the great book that all of your readers deserve. So those are the three things: the history of it, how beta readers and book reviewers are different, and a third part of how to set your beta readers' expectations and how we're going to use that information to give you a great book. So I promised you a story about that project I worked on with an author this year where we used beta readers to help us out. I had a very interesting experience. Honestly, it was fun looking back at it. It was just in that moment. It's just like, oh, didn't feel that fun at the moment. But after we got past that moment, I was working with an author who has about 25 plus years selling timeshare, which, at first you're thinking, okay, a salesman is a salesman. But the interesting thing is he wanted to write a book that helps people understand. I'm sorry, he would be upset if I said timeshare. If he wants to write a book that would help people understand what vacation ownership is. And his biggest thing is everyone thinks of timeshare, and he uses the term your grandmother's timeshare. It's not like your grandmother's timeshare where you have 1 week at one resort and you have to be there, or you have to find somebody who wants that particular week at that resort and trade with them, and has this whole explanation of how it's different now. It's a points-based system, and you buy your points and you can use the points at anywhere you want to. But I'm not going to get into all the details of his book, though. The main point is, just want to tell you enough of it so you understand that he's a salesperson and he specializes in having people come in, sit down with him for 90 minutes or so. These are people that want nothing to do with anything he has to sell. And I get it, because not too long ago, actually I think about maybe 6 months before I started working with him, my husband and I became vacation owners with a completely different company, but using the point system. And I know when we went in, only reason we did it is because it was a trip to Myrtle Beach. My husband is not a traveler, I am. And the only way I can convince him to take a trip only 3 hours down the road was that we paid, I think it was like $200, and to go on the trip, and in return for going, we would get $250 worth of incentives. So I was like, hey, we take this trip, 3 days, 2 nights to Myrtle Beach. That was right after our daughter was born, so she came with us, and say, we do this, we take this trip, and we'll get paid $50 on top of getting our money back. So he's a numbers guy. That made sense, so we went. And so this author, he specialized in working with people like us who have no intention of buying anything. The only reason we're even there is because there was a good deal involved. Every company, every time, every promotion is different, but everyone took a deal. And I'm the kind of person who, if I see a pair of shoes or a purse or something I like that's not a necessity, I'm thinking, oh, that's really cute. But I don't know if I want to pay that price. I'm going to sleep on it and see if I still want it as much tomorrow, or think about, okay, do I want to put that money in the oil change for the car, or do I want to put that money in those shoes? I'm not sure if I can wear that often. I'll rationalize it. I'm trying to figure out, does it make sense? But although I will sleep on it and decide if I'm going to spend $40, we went into a presentation with a salesperson just like him, and we agreed to spend $15,000. And we agreed to do that after a 90-minute presentation, although we're the kind of people who will sleep on a decision whether or not we want to spend $40. So with that said, you have someone who is a professional getting people to spend money in 90 minutes or less, amazing salesperson, but the problem is he's always in sales mode, and he wanted this book to be an informational book. So how do we get him out of sales mode and get him into a teaching mode where we're not telling people what is good and bad and different? I have my perspective, being an outsider going in. He has his perspective. He's been in it. He knows what he's doing. But the tiebreaker, and of course he made a lot of really good points why he should keep it that way. And I made what I think are a lot of really good points. But beta readers set the record straight. They came in, it was raw, it was not polished, and we made sure beta readers knew this is not a polished draft. We need you to come in and help us figure out what direction we're going to go in. His beta readers were phenomenal. One of his beta readers was actually a retired magazine editor. What are the odds? But he reached out through his Facebook, of all things, just to the people he was already in contact with. It wasn't a professional business account. This was just his personal Facebook account. He reached out, said, hey, y'all, I'm working on this book. Y'all know that I do timeshare. Y'all know this is what I do. I want to do this book to help people understand what it is without having the pressure of a salesperson in front of them when they make the decision. So I'd really need some feedback so I figure out how to make this book something that people want to read. And about 10 or 15 people responded asking for a copy. Out of the 15, about 9 people gave feedback. Some of people gave feedback and it was just 1 or 2 sentences. Good book. You're on the right track. I'm sure it'll be great. And some other people did make some comments and said, okay, has to get some grammar or some other things cleaned up, but I love the message. But almost everyone consistently across the board, even though it was a raw, rough draft, they looked at it, but they didn't look at it and focus on this sentence is not structured right, or this is weird, this is worded funny. They weren't focused on that. Most of the actually all of them, were so blown away by all this information they did not know about. They were just so amazed by that. They were excited to be part of the process. And they knew that it wasn't finished. It's the same thing that software developers do all the time. I'd say, okay, there's a beta version. I use Canva to help design different things, for example. And Canva is releasing a beta version of something. It's got different glitches in the system, but I don't really care because I know it's in beta. And so I know it's not a polished version. I don't mind. I just want to play with it. And I know they want my feedback. And I love that once they come out of beta version, I've done this with my accounting software and several other tools I use. When it comes out of beta, then I get to say, look, there's that recommendation I made and it's in there. So now I'm going around telling everybody about Canva, about Wave Accounting or whatever software because they added that one feature that I recommended. So I got my fingerprint on it. Feeding into my ego a little bit, but I know I'm not alone in that. There's something about saying, okay, you're creating something, you're still shaping it and molding it. And I get to be a part of that. And that's exactly what helped me in that author for that vacation ownership book that helped us figure out how to get past that point. We looked at the language they used, the answers to the questions. One of the most common questions are, would you recommend this book in its polished form? Across the board, on every project I've done this with, almost all of them said yes. Or if there were some catch to say yes, but really need to explain this step more, or explain and add this information. Or one of my favorites, still sticking with this example to be consistent, one of my favorite feedback was there was someone saying that, well, the book focused too much on a points-based vacation ownership system and didn't focus as much on a week-based system. The week-based system being the one I told you, where you buy a week of timeshare at one specific resort, one specific location, and you own it so that every year you go back to that resort during that 1 week. That was the criticism. And at first, the author wanted to respond to that by talking more about weeks. But I reminded him that at the beginning, when I started asking him questions about his goals, and I write it down. And I know that sometimes when I'm working with authors, it could feel like, why is she asking all these questions? It's because down the road, those things matter. And in this case, he wanted to make it clear. He wrote to me in an email that he wanted to make sure this book talked about points-based vacation ownership and how it's different, and it's not the same. It's not your grandmother's timeshare is always his thing. So if that's the point, why are we going to spend enough time explaining the weeks so we can understand the difference, but we're not trying to explain it to the point of telling them how to do it and how to use it? That's beyond the scope. The example I use for him is, if I were to write a book on how to raise, how to do your toddler's hair, and I got some feedback from beta readers were saying, well, that's great, a lot of good information on how to do your toddler's hair, but you didn't say anything about how to potty train them, because that's beyond the scope of the book. So just saying that, because all the feedback you get back from your beta readers, it's going to be interesting. They're going to make a lot of good points. And because you are an incredible author who really wants to serve, you're going to want to respond to everything. But everything is not for us to respond to, at least not in this book. Maybe in another book, maybe in another project. But we're sticking with our original goals. But we're using that beta reader feedback to figure out how to move forward. What is it that they get stuck on? What is it that they like? Is it something we need to do more of? Is it something we need to expand on? Because you're going to have ideas for your book. I'm going to have ideas for your book. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what the people think that are going to buy it. Because the beta readers should be people that have a lot in common, or represent, or be samples of the same people that are going to buy your book and any other information products, courses, speaking engagements, anything else, membership sites, anything else that you decide to sell to, or even to use as a teaching mechanism on your message. It needs to be something that resonates with them. And the biggest thing about that is really learning what language, what are the words they use, because they might say that they want to find a way to take vacations more often, but if you're stuck on using a different terminology, you might not connect with them. So that's the story of why I now use beta readers. And we flowed a little bit into how beta readers and book reviewers are different. Both of them are people that represent and they're going to read your book. They're going to give you feedback. The difference is the beta readers, they're getting the raw version because they're helping create the polished version. The book reviewers, the version they're getting should be almost print ready. Pretty close to perfect. At that point, you should have the message should be fully fleshed out. You should have all the information that should be in there. The only thing that might be off is it might not have all of the editing. So all of the I's might not be dotted, all the T's might not be crossed, might still have some more things to do to polish up the grammar. By the time we get to that, might be some sentence structure areas, but the message, the core message is already set because you've already talked to beta readers. Now, we can get some information from beta readers that we can use as reviews in the book launch. And often we'll use the information that beta readers tell us to help us figure out how to word the message to get reviewers interested in reading your book. So they're similar, but for you, just to help set your expectations, I just want you to understand that beta readers, they help shape the book. They're a big part of helping write the book and create the information. And then after that, you polish it, go through several rounds of refining it, cleaning up the language, cleaning up the grammar, making it look pretty, making sure that it ties in properly into your platform. All of that comes after the beta readers because you're using the information from what the beta reader said to create it. Because what we don't want to do is spend all this time, all this effort, all this money creating a book, and then you get to the end and you're trying to sell something that everybody's not as excited about as you were and as I was. So to prevent that up front, we have the beta readers. the reviewers, they're the ones that towards the end, we might make some changes if they catch something that was a big oversight, like maybe the vacation book, for example. Maybe we never talked at all about how much it costs to buy into vacation ownership, and that was an oversight that the beta readers missed and we missed, and a reviewer catches it like, whoa, that didn't happen, by the way. But just saying, if it did, that would be a point. Ooh, let's go back. But mainly reviewers, we use them towards the end, because when we're going to do a launch, we want everyone talking about the book before it comes out. One of the best examples I can offer is that in this second year of President Trump's time in office, there have been several books that have come out from people who used to work with his campaign, talking about their experiences with him and his campaign. And we hear all of these things, national media covers it before the book is released. Well, it's because of those reviews they went out. And so they have these snippets of different reviews. Or another example would be how the movie industry does it long before movies come out. We see snippets, we see little trailers and little teasers, and that's what the reviewers are for, because they have the more polished version of trying to tease people about it. Beta readers come much earlier in the process. All right, and the third thing I said I want to talk to you about is how to set your beta readers' expectations and how to bring their feedback into the writing process. So we have about 4 or 5 questions. One of those questions is usually about the book title, and if we've already decided to do a mock-up of the book cover, then we can show that to readers too, beta readers too, and get their feedback. What do they like? What do they not like? And about the book as a whole, which chapters made most sense? Which chapters seemed like it was missing something? Is there something about the book's topic they expected to find in the book and didn't find? Or did they find something in the book that they don't think is relevant to the topic? Those are the kind of things that we want to know from beta readers. So when you and I get back together and we work out how, or you and whatever editor you're working with at that point in time, get together and figure out how to fix it, then it'd be nice to know, right? So we've talked about the history of why I use beta readers, talked a little bit about how beta readers are different from book reviewers, and even talked about how we're going to use that feedback and bring that into the writing process and help out. So I hope you're more comfortable with bringing beta readers into the writing process after knowing this. But as always, don't hesitate to reach out to me with questions about anything that gives you cause for pause or leaves you frustrated. Because my goal is to walk with you through the process, and knowing what's on your mind helps me do just that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.